Time now for our Spotlight segment, and we talk about eSpirit. In today's episode of the In the Spotlight, we'll be reviewing eSpirit CMS solution, FirstSpirit. eSpirit was founded in Dortmund, Germany in 1999 and is represented with 13 locations in Germany, the United States, Great Britain, Australia, and Switzerland. The company is part of the Adesso Group, one of the largest German IT service providers. Customers benefit from a network of very experienced, certified partner organizations providing competent consulting, implementation services, and support. And to talk about eSpirit and to talk about FirstSpirit, we bring in our good buddy Bryan Ruby from CMS Report. Bryan, how are you?
We're real good, Butch. I'm real good.
Good to talk to you once again. How you doing?
Real good, real good. I'm trying to gear up for one final camping trip this weekend.
Oh, there you go. For people that don't know about you, Bryan, and about CMS Report, give us the short answer to that. What are you all about? What's CMS Report all about?
Well, it's a lot about what I don't know. So then I go look for it and try to find out what I need to know. And so it's a nice place as far as just to talk about content management systems, and we kind of focus on the software side. You know, everybody says it's more than software, and they're right, but there is some importance in software too.
So let's start with FirstSpiritCMS. What can you tell us about it?
Well, you know, it's even though they've been around for a while, they're relatively new on this side, you know, the ocean, and so we're just starting to get to know them. And you know, a couple of the things is you know, they have over 20,000 projects they claim they've done, and representing over 1,000 different brands. So they're representing brands like Speedo, Sterling Jewelers, Bosch, Nintendo even. You know, so they're definitely as far as geared towards those high-end sites, and it's not probably something, you know, Bob's Bait Shop at the corner is going to use. So some of the dry stuff as far as the specs on it, they're a Java-based content management system, and their focus is integration. They're really trying to gear up what we've heard before. You know, they're trying to gear up towards integrating with service providers, so you don't have to switch over to their platform completely, but you use them to connect with the service providers that you would like, or I should say the third-party services. So they've got offerings, you know, where they can integrate with like Portal Liferay, JBoss, IBM WebSphere, SharePoint, etc. Some of the things we've seen before. One of the things that they're focused really on is operating system independence, database independence, and along with that integration, they're really focused on usability. I mean, and it's in a huge way. You know, we've talked about inline editing and that strange geeky debate whether inline editing is good or not, but their focus is really taking it to a higher level, and it's pretty amazing stuff. So, you know, some of the features, Butch, that I'm liking is, you know, they are offering as far as on the usability side, they offer as far as two types of clients. They offer a web client and they offer a Java client. Their web client is geared towards the normal user, the normal editor, the normal author, but it's also very heavy in inline editing. And it's a lot slick. It's probably the slickest inline editing implementation I've seen for a content management system. Editors gonna love it. My first thought is this is the content management system for the user. This is the kind where if you have authors that are frustrated with their content management systems, complain to you all the time, that, you know, this is great, maybe for running a site, but for editing and for writing articles and those type of things. You know, this is going to be a step up.
Okay.
So they have this web client that's kind of for the normal user, but they also have this Java client that I'm tell you to struggle for as far as how to describe it, because it's, you know, we have inline editing that we talk about. If you want to call this Java client that's geared towards the advanced users, the authors, the administrators, I would call it, and I'm making this word up, but I would call it inline integration. And the only way I can explain this is, you know, when you're trying to, let's say you're trying to embed something from Google Maps or YouTube, you know, those video stuff. The old way or the current way of doing it is we take the code, we embed it into our page, and there's a lot of work to do that. And more times than not, somebody needs help because the code is wrong. Well, what FirstSpirit does is it's really integrated into this nice little platform You have like a search mechanism. It brings up the video on the right side of your page. You click the video, you drag it over, and it's there. It's done. You don't worry about code. You don't worry about, as far as the cut and paste things. It's there, and it's really kind of a neat thing. And so what FirstSpirit is doing is basically this integration that works in a really, probably, I don't think I've seen anything like it. And maybe I just don't have a bigger world, but I'm really impressed with what they're doing.
Well, I just love the fact, Bryan, that you're inventing terms here on CMS-Connected. Inline integration. Inline integration. We're going to get headlines out of this. I love it. So you talked about the slickness of their inline editing. You talked about their overall focus on usability of the features you like. What's missing? What's missing from this FirstSpirit?
Well, it's really two things, and they're not really necessarily missing, but challenges. So one of the things is they do have this very nice app center that's set up so you can get these third-party integrations. So from a business point of view, you're going to wonder, well, how much are those apps? And because that's probably part of their modeling on that. But I'm going to assume that's a reasonable thing. But that's a question to ask. And the next thing though is because there's this big change in how this editing's done. It really is a step forward from what we've seen in the past. If you're a company that has a traditional content management system and you have, it's the training aspect that I think is going to be a challenge. It's very intuitive, but the problem is we always have somebody that doesn't have intuition. And in the past, we give them a step-by-step instructions how to run the software. I think this is one of those things where it's so intuitive. I think training is really going to be something that a company has to focus on. And that's something I didn't get a chance to talk to the people doing the demo. But really, how do you run the software? Because it is different.
Let me jump in there. Bryan, let me jump in there. So for a company, you're saying one of the challenges or one of the issues you have with it is that for a company that's focused on usability, that it takes too much training for a company to do this?
No, I'm not saying too much training. What I am saying, though, is I think if for companies, they traditionally like to invest in the software and in the workflow aspects. But this is something where you're going to want to make sure you also invest in your people that are running the software and make sure they know how to utilize this great piece of software. Okay. It's one of those things that I think, we have people that when you go from Microsoft Word and you're using in the cloud like Google Docs, they're lost. And I know that it sounds like, well, these are smart people, but they're lost. And so this is such a change that I would say that the challenge is going to be is kind of on the training side. Just getting people used to the new way of doing things with this content management system.
All right, so for eSpirit, who are their competitors when it comes to FirstSpirit here?
Well, I think Adobe would be one, with a lot of the inline type editing that they're doing, kind of being user-centric. They're kind of gearing themselves as a niche CMS. So I think in a lot of ways, there may not be a competitor for them. In fact, Gartner puts them as a niche. They're doing something different that we don't know where it's taking. But I tell you, it's really a very neat thing to do. It's one of those things that, when we talk about usability, there's a lot in here, and it's not a catchphrase. They're taking it very seriously, and they're really innovating in that aspect.
What do you expect that we're going to hear down the road from eSpirit about FirstSpirit?
Well, I think probably one of the things is since they've concentrated so much on the usability side, you do have those content management folks that like the structure and like the very systematic way of doing things. I think they're going to probably focus on making sure those people are happy too. They've and I think they do that too. Their Java client, which is geared towards the high-end user, it has a lot of these familiar things that we see in content management systems to deal with structure, to deal with as far as how you're deploying this to different channels, those type of things. But I think that's where they're probably going to the usability is such a huge improvement. I think they're going to have to reassure those more traditional folks that they're on the right path.
All right, that is Bryan Ruby. You can read him, you can consume him at CMS Report on any device you want, where you want. Bryan, thanks for your time. We always appreciate your insight.
All right, thank you, Butch.
All right, Bryan. Bryan Ruby. That's what happens today.
Consume?
Yes, we're all we're consumers. We're looking to consume
Yes,
our thought leaders.
That's right.
That's how we do it.
That's right. I want to be consumed too.
So, First Spirit, eSpirit put this out.
Yep.
Bryan talked about that they have a web client and a Java client. He talked about that they're focused on usability. He gave us the good points and the bad points. Now what, Scott? Talk about your take on
I
this.
think you hit it on the head when you asked him who do they compete with, and he had a little bit of struggle coming up with an answer to that, because it is a Java play. It's a Java product, which is kind of typically viewed to be mostly enterprise oriented. A lot of the kind of mid-market solutions just tend to be .NET solutions, and the Java ones are the larger stacks. eSpirit does not have this, like, they actually are in quite a lot of installs, but for the most part they're being pulled in by other partners. So they tend to be the product that's pulled in by the Hybris, by the SAP, by the other kind of large players, or the large portal products, that sort of a thing, where you don't usually find kind of eSpirit as the sole CMS by itself. It's usually when you're trying to integrate with these other major tools. And so kind of who do they compete against is a good question, because they kind of have this small time feel. They were one of the first ones with this kind of app store idea and having apps kind of similar to the open source model, where they've got partners who have built these apps and made them available. So they were one of the first in the proprietary CMS space to do that. But then they also talk about integrating with Hybris and SAP and OpenText, these kind of much larger players. So then it seems to be like so they kind of this tale of two cities a little bit with them.
So let me ask you,
hard to position.
Let me ask you a different question. If we're talking about their competition, you seem to be saying who should the question they should really be asking is who should they be partnering up with?
Yeah, exactly. And I think one thing that they've done really well is that they actually have a lot of companies will go and say, yes, we work with SharePoint, we work with whatever, and they have like some small little one-off connector. FirstSpirit has a lot of detailed examples of kind of deep integrations and connections with some of these tools. It's just that they don't have, whether it's the marketing budget, the presence in the States, whatever it might be, to get a lot of adoption kind of on their own right. So you don't tend to see them in these kind of head-to-head shortlisting competitions with folks. You mostly see them being pulled in as a portal starts to kind of reach its limits and start to need CMS capabilities, then they might go and pull them in, that sort of thing. But you'll be able to see them at our conference coming up. They'll be at Digital Pulse, so if you want to get a first look.